I think the majority of people find the vegan label to be too much to take on because of how we've branded it. So they're just simply not willing to open their minds to it. So my strategy is this. We need to make the lifestyle look as attractive and inviting as we possibly can, which, sorry to the militant vegans out there, but that means allowing a little bit of flexibility and becoming more understanding about people's own processes.
Anyone who honestly and fully apprehends the principles underlying the philosophy of animal rights should not act against those principles and contribute further to the ruthless exploitation of animals for mere pleasure or convenience. Kalel consumes animal products for reasons of pleasure or convenience and attempts to excuse her behavior. She's not a vegan. She's not an animal rights advocate. She supports the exploitation of non-human animals in both action and in theory. Her attempt at muddying the definition of veganism, her attempt at painting our obligation not to abuse others as an absurd, extreme ideal, has more in common with the person opposed to veganism and animal rights than the one who endorses them. Perhaps we cannot live in a world where we never accidentally kill or harm others, but we can choose not to kill or harm others for our pleasure or convenience. And perhaps many vegans still use animal products found in obscure places. But this is a far cry from the intentional support of obvious cases of animal exploitation. To call oneself a vegan and to then purchase and eat animal products for purposes of pleasure or convenience is to support the exploitation of animals. It's to support the abuse of vulnerable individuals who, like us, have the right to be treated with respect. They don't exist for our purposes, and this includes being a snack at a movie theater. Kalel's quibbling over the definition of veganism does not absolve her of the obligation to not treat animals as mere objects.
And third, to Kalel, like, you are doing so amazing. Having 4 candy bars a year, having popcorn when you go to the movie, Jesus, even if you go to see a movie every week, you are doing such an incredible job. It honestly makes me so sad that fucking purity vegans have made you feel bad and have made you feel like you aren't doing an amazing job. The truth is that you have almost like 2 million subscribers, something like that. You've been talking about animal rights and animal welfare for a long time now. I'm sure you have convinced countless people to change their eating habits and change their purchasing habits. You have done more good for animals than, 100 vegans combined. If someone really spends their time making you and others feel bad for eating a candy bar here or there, these people do not have their priorities in the right place. They are very confused. They might be projecting a little bit. I have heard many, many stories of people saying they're vegan and then they are caught eating cheese and all this other shit. So, again, I would not take anything these people say personally.
Then we have the vegans who support Kalel's Milky Way addiction. These are the vegans who are, whether explicitly or implicitly, directly opposed to animal rights and the complete abolition of animal exploitation. Their opposition is, of course, based on their shameful ignorance of animal rights theory. They are the milquetoast welfarists, the flexible vegans, and the pragmatic vegans. Many of them are the unwitting heirs to Peter Singer's ethical thought, the ethical thought that denies the moral rights of both humans and non-human animals. It's the thinking that can lead one to argue that both humans and non-human animals can be permissibly harmed, killed, exploited, and replaced for the maximizing of utility. These vegans believe that in order to reduce animal suffering, it's useful to appease the status quo. These rational vegans will acquiesce to the culture of animal exploitation. These pragmatic vegans will attempt to appeal to the prejudices of the majority, believing that this will somehow create significant and meaningful change. For generally being obsessed with empiricism, it's amazing how they treat this as if it's an a priori matter. But it's not at all clear that appealing to the speciesism of the status quo will somehow make it more receptive to significantly foregoing speciesism and animal exploitation. In fact, one could argue that if so-called animal rights advocates are willing to permit acts of speciesism and animal exploitation, then they further reinforce the status quo's beliefs and prejudices. After all, if these so-called animal rights advocates are willing to concede some speciesism and animal exploitation, then why should the rest of society take their cause that seriously? From Unnatural Vegan congratulating Kalel for only supporting animal abuse and exploitation occasionally, to Tobias Leenaert's suggestion that it would be permissible to eat cookies with animal products if doing so prevented hurting your grandma's feelings, these people make veganism and animal rights look pitiful. If a child abuser told you that he had to abuse one child a year in order to keep his impulses in check, no serious human rights advocate would congratulate him or his actions. If your grandmother wanted you to occasionally join in on shouting racial slurs at her neighbor, and it would hurt her feelings if you didn't join in, or perhaps not participating would make anti-racism seem too extreme, it would not suddenly become permissible for you to join in on the racism. In any other context, these pragmatic vegans would not be promoting this prejudiced nonsense. I suspect that they get away with this because speciesism is so pervasive and unquestioned, which includes their own thinking as well. But we owe it to individuals, regardless of their race, sex, intelligence, age, or species, among other things, to treat them with respect. The animal rights advocate recognizes the inherent worth of individuals and rejects both arbitrary discrimination and the exploitation of any individual. Kalel, Unnatural Vegan, Tobias Leenaert, and the whole lot are not animal rights advocates. They submit to the status quo of speciesism and animal exploitation.
The position we hold, the abolitionist position, often is said to be extreme, and those of us who hold it are said to be extremists. The unspoken suggestions are that extreme positions cannot be right and that extremists must be wrong. But I am an extremist. When it comes to rape, I'm against it all the time. I am an extremist when it comes to child abuse. I'm against it all the time. I am an extremist when it comes to sexual discrimination, racial discrimination. I am against it all the time. I am against the abuse of the elderly all the time. The plain fact is, moral truth often is extreme and must be, for when the injustice is absolute, then one must oppose it absolutely.